Hello, everybody. It is I, Mario Mijares, your friendly astrologer. And today we have a special episode where I have two friends here, fellow astrologers, where we met at a conference in California, a human design conference. And you may have seen the first episode that we've done before. That was hosted by Meten, and we're taking turns here. So now I'm playing host. And I'm going to allow these two fine gentlemen to introduce themselves. Casey, why don't you go ahead and let everybody know who you are?
Yeah, so my name's Casey Gizzy, and I am an astrologer who also practices astrotheology and something I call astroheology, which maybe I won't get all into that right now, but my channel is on Astrology on YouTube. I have Instagram channel under that name, and I'm most active on Instagram threads under that channel. And I'm very excited to be doing these podcasts with both of you guys. I think the last one went great, and I am very excited to keep continuing this on. And I think we're perfect for for the influences right now. So the way we flow off each other.
Yeah. I really appreciate your background in astrotheology, especially because me personally, living in the South, I deal with a lot of, I live in a Bible Belt region. And so I deal with a lot of folks that want to tell me, astrology or any kind of divination is satanic, not of Jesus and all of that. So I love learning some of these biblical astrological facts from you, so I can have some ammo in response to some of the people who are telling me I need to renounce or repent because astrology is of the devil. So I really appreciate your background in that there.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
Mhm.
It's
It
great.
def- it definitely works often. I mean, well, just I wouldn't say it necessarily works, but like I have used it to silence people, like where it's just like, like what? That's interesting, you know. Some people,
Mhm.
they don't want to hear it, obviously, but yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. And the 10?
And so I'm a 10, I'm McLean of Plutonic Planes. And so that's my YouTube. And I'm active on YouTube, not on any other social media. I do have my website, Plutonic Planes. And my focus is the underworld. And all the planets visit the underworld every year and some every month, like the moon. And that's my main focus. I also do human design on my channel. I do the transits for the sun every 5 days, as well as other collaborations. And but my main focuses are human design and astrocartography. And so I'll leave it at that. And it's been great working with these guys. The last show we did got a lot of views, and seems a lot of people really love us interacting and sharing. The feedback I got was just maybe to share more charts. So we'll share a couple charts today, see how that goes. And yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. I love the fusion of the astrology and the human design because you're really deep and passionate about both of them. So I like learning of course my wife's a human design practitioner too, but she has no knowledge of astrology. And so I like hearing what you have to say about human design, but then also, the sprinkle of astrology that you tie in it also, and that just helps me learn more about human design. And you always got a lot of wonderful ways you deliver the information. I watched your recent video with a woman named Tula breaking down the Mercury. And what that whole video, I was excited about everything you guys were saying. You guys were so smart about breaking the Mercury breakdown. And I've watched some of your human design transit videos too, which is interesting because I never really understood how transits work in human design. I mean, every once in a while, Shelley will say, "Oh, something something is in the gate or whatever," and I'm like, "Okay, maybe that's the Saturn or something." Yeah.
It's hard. It's different. It's different. Yeah. It's a different process.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Thanks,
Well,
man. Appreciate that.
yeah, yeah. All right. So obviously today, one of the main things we're going to talk about is the Aquarius new moon, the solar eclipse, the lunar new year, also the ushering in of the year of the fire horse. And we have our man Casey here, who is actually born with an Aquarius stellium. So he's going to be our vessel in giving us some breakdown of this Aquarian solar eclipse. And myself and Meten will also give our 2 cents about these eclipses after Casey leads the way here. So go ahead, Casey.
All right. Were you gonna share that eclipse on there, or uh,
Oh,
you?
yeah. Let me pull that up.
Awesome.
Make sure you can see it. You see
Yeah.
it? Is it there?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome.
Awesome. Okay. Cool. So, well, first off, I just want to say, like, right out of the gate, every Aquarius new moon is what marks the Chinese Lunar New Year, right? So it's not just a reset. It's not just a reset of the month. It's a reset of the entire year.
Right.
And then coupled with that, it's a partial eclipse, so it just adds more impact, more of just closing out of the chapters. They're just, they're going to be dead and gone, and new ones are going to begin. Um, what's interesting, I want to first say about the this year of the fire horse is, I don't know if you guys are aware, but I believe it was the last fire horse year. It was 1966, where the Chinese government, they basically were afraid of the populace having too many fire horse babies, because they feared that they're too headstrong and rebellious, and there was widespread abortions in China because of it.
That's crazy. I did not know that.
That's fascinating, but
Is
the Chinese are very,
Yeah,
I mean, they use their Chinese astrology very, there's some very strong opinions in China about certain animals and years.
mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
yeah.
And
So
in 19 sorry, but also in 1966, uh there was I think Chiron, um was Chiron, what other planet? I know Saturn, and there was another planet, I think, in Pisces during that year too. So that's interesting.
yeah. So, I mean, and it looks like I mean, just from the look of it, it looks like a very fire horse like year, because it looks like it's going to be another very rebellious. 'Cause what I'm looking at, well, first of all, Aquarius, we know that Aquarius is kind of notorious for, like, they're able to suspend emotion, basically, and bring it down, like rain, like, and with objectivity, and kind of suspend that emotion and translate it almost in like a telepathic osmosis, where they can kind of arrive at truth with like not a whole lot of logic or apparent effort. Aquarians have that gift, so they can pull down this intel. They can suspend emotion by remaining objective, but when their water vase fills up, they can also, they crack that vault of emotional energy, because Aquarius is very much the water itself. Like, they're an air sign, but Aquarius is the actual water, where the water signs are really the creatures swimming around in that sea, and Aquarius is like the scientist, you know getting the frequency out of that water, and basically, kind of being like a symbol of, like, law of attraction. Well, here's the result of what is going on in that water, or what, how the water is being tested. So, with that said, it's like, this it's happening at the later degrees of Aquarius. It's 28 degrees, and Mars isn't too far away from it. So we got that martial energy, again, fire horse, a headstrong, adding to Aquarius's more rebellious nature. And there's going to be a lot of don't be surprised if we have a lot more insight, a lot more epiphanies, flashes of inspiration, innovation. Mars is going to amplify our drive, our action with this, but it can also make us a little too excitable for our own good, especially because the main thing that I see that's going to be affecting this solar eclipse is the square to Uranus, and that's in Taurus. So what I'm seeing with that is that with Uranus and Taurus, the square to Uranus and Taurus. Well, like first off, I think that any personal planet square to Uranus kind of amplifies Uranus energy in a sense, like because I mean, I would say kind of in a more negative sense with as it relates to like the abruptness of Uranus, the unpredictable nature of Uranus, the disruptions, you know, the high erratic, unstable energy of Uranus. And being that it's in Taurus, it's really squaring the shakeup of our value systems, our monetary systems, even of nature, natural resources, and the earth itself. So there could be, who knows? I mean, this could be a year where there are natural disasters, but it's also going to affect technology as well. Electronics and appliances may just be extra glitchy, with all this. Um, and what I'm mainly seeing is that like it's a very exciting year, and there's so much progress being made, especially seeing Venus close conjuncting the North Node, you know, and there's so much like amazing progress going on with things like I think with Venus and the North Node, it's almost like a behind the scenes involvement of bringing a higher love frequency. So, and then when you couple the whole Sun, Moon, Mars conjunction squaring to Uranus, it's I feel like it's going to be a year where it's going to be chaos, but that chaos is actually going to cause a lot of progress and really create a surge of initiation into more of what the Aquarian age is going to be, what it's supposed to be, how authentic we are supposed to shine in our own truths, and live in them. And it's it's kind of like especially when I see Mars in Uranus, but this could be any square to a personal planet in Uranus. You just have to trust that there's a method to the madness, you know. With this, I mean, we're gonna feel it for the first month the most intensely because it's the new moon month, but it's going to be playing out throughout the whole year how this is all set up. So I think that this year is going to be erratic as hell, but exciting. We're gonna be able to launch. It's you're gonna have to like trust the chaos almost and trust the method of the mat. Like if you guys have ever seen Anger Management with Jack Nicholson and Adam Sandler, have you guys seen that movie?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's almost kind of this year will almost kind of remind me of that. Like
Mm,
Nicholson's like this, you know what I mean? He's like this like highly eccentric, you know, therapist that
right.
just very unorthodox and unconventional tactics, but somehow it drives you crazy, but then it works out in some way because it brings what was truly revealing to the surface, so. And then with that said, Aquarius is ruled by Saturn, so it's going straight into the whole Saturn Neptune conjunction where it's dispositing into. So obviously, Saturn just entered Aries, so if we haven't already been starting to build a strong innate sense of self and identity from last year and into this year now, we're going to be hit with a lot of challenges and growing pains, and I think growing pains will still be a part of it regardless. But we really need to have that in place, that innate strong sense of self and identity. Because naturally, and I notice this with people who have Saturn in Aries, they have difficulty properly assimilating lessons. They have difficulty in properly being coherent to the experiences and assimilating those. And it's all about just learning better responsibility to tempering more discipline and control towards those fiery Aries passions, because so what we're going to witness is attitude adjustments, plenty of attitude adjustments, learning patience, practicing restraint, and just basically learning through raw experiences, like, because Aries, more than any other sign, is more likely to continue to bump into shit, more, and repeat the same mistakes more, stuff like that. And we're going to have to understand that there's a fine line between acting and impulsivity, because it is a time to act, but it's also a time to not be impulsive, you know? So it may kind of feel like our ego is going to go and be put through boot camp, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And then obviously with a conjunction to Neptune, it's, you don't want to have anything, you don't want to have nothing too fixed in your mind. You don't want to have any construct too fixed, whether it's a person, place, thing, idea, ideology, belief. You don't want to have it too fixed. The only thing that you want to operate on a fixed level is a innate, strong sense of belief and certainty and confidence within yourself with the Aries energy. Everything else you need to not have a fixed frame of mind on, with it in conjunction to Neptune, with Saturn dispositing throughout this eclipse, playing its huge role throughout the year. And it's really important to kind of understand that it's what's holding things together are optical illusions, with the Saturn Neptune energy. So when you look closer, you start to begin to figure out all the subtle cues in reality that what you're filtering through your unconscious mind onto the projection screen of Saturn's third dimensional reality, or third density reality, and Neptune has a lot to do with the collective unconscious mind, so that is very much, I think, like, in a nutshell, what I'm kind of seeing for this year for the solar eclipse. And with like I said, with the North Node also conjuncting Venus, whenever planets also get close to the nodes, when they conjunct the nodes, conjunct an opposite especially, I noticed that there's more splitting timelines, because the South Node is the past and the North Node is the future. And I noticed that I've been hearing that a lot on the Super Bowl, because when Mercury passed on the North Node just right before, or right after the Super Bowl, so I mean it's still resonating. I was watching videos on like how like restaurants and bars had to like separate people because they needed to watch the halftime show, Kid Rock's halftime show on Turning Point USA, and the other people had to sit on the other side to watch the actual Super Bowl halftime show. And so it's like whenever these planets come to conjoin the nodes, it's like, the timeline is splitting, because some people are moving more, they're not growing into the future evolution, and they're just being stuck in the past. And then we are dividing further, and the timelines are just splitting further apart. So with Venus, though, that's going to create that with our value system. Like I was saying, it's squaring the Taurus. So, that timeline is going to split apart even more, but we have to understand that it's, Venus and the North Node coming together. Venus is exalted in Pisces. Like I said, when we learn to trust the progress of the chaos and the method to the madness, we know that what's conspiring is being brought to a higher love, like like that song, bring me to a higher love, and that's ultimately, as crazy as it may seem, like that, like that movie Anger Management, which Meten, if you haven't seen it, I would advise you to check it out so you have a better idea of what I mean. Um, you'll really see what this year is really like, and what I'm kind of trying to translate, getting you an idea of what it can be like. It doesn't have to be as that as that intense, but to varying levels and degrees, I think that's something that we are going to experience if you're familiar with the movie. But yeah, I think in a nutshell, that's kind of it. And also, I also want to add that throughout history, Saturn Neptune has always had things to do with boundaries and borders, changing. Like I know that we in 1846 it was the U.S. and Mexican War where that changed the borders significantly, and even the last Saturn Neptune conjunction we had the Berlin Wall fall and the dissolution of the Soviet Union and the end of the Cold War, you know, and the thing is, because structures and boundaries are just, they're all elusive. They don't really exist. There is no such thing as America and California. There's no natural line that separates that. You know what I mean? And that's what's being revealed. There's only land, water, and people that actually exist in objectional reality. Like, yeah, that's what is being revealed, because it's not real. It's control. And we're not meant to have boundaries. The whole idea is we're meant to grow unconditional. Learn how to get along and grow unconditional. So no matter what boundaries we place, sometimes they're necessary, but we also have to learn how to grow beyond them. And that's basically what is that Saturn Neptune is really trying to initiate and teach us, which will be prevalent throughout this whole year, as Saturn being the ruler of Aquarius, launching this whole new year and closing a chapter like an eclipse and beginning a new one. So yeah, I think I'll end it there.
Wow, you said a lot of really good things there, and especially what you ended with the borders changing, because we've been seeing talks in our own government about Iceland, or Greenland, can we make
Yeah,
Greenland part of America? Can we
yeah,
make does Canada want to become part of America? And then we have all these very interesting Israeli American ties things going on too. So it's a that's a really interesting thing to note there.
yeah,
And the eclipse, another thing that I also find interesting about this eclipse is 6 months from now, when the sun is in Leo and we have an eclipse in Leo, the north node will be at 29, 28 degrees Aquarius, and the south node will be 29, 28 degrees
yeah.
Leo.
That's
So
another.
that's gonna bring things into, the things that we are intending or that we're experiencing now, initiating this incubation, unraveling until we hit that next eclipse point. So that's a really interesting thing there. You got anything to add there, Meten?
Yeah, yeah, sure. It was great, Casey, when you were talking about how this particular year, being year of the fire horse, there's going to be kind of an element of revolutionary chaos. Like you were talking about holding to your Aries, holding to your personality, and allowing everything else to be more malleable. And it reminded me of an adage I use on my YouTube, which is, do not fear chaos, employ it. Give it work to do. Give it an aim, give it a goal, give it a direction. And so I think that applies. And then you mentioned as well, you mentioned so many things, but this eclipse, I'll just add this then. This eclipse occurring tomorrow is at 28 degrees Aquarius. And you mentioned this, so I'm just going to build off it. You said that it's squaring, I think you said that it's squaring Uranus and Taurus also at 28 degrees. So Uranus and Taurus is the Earth, and we've been going through a lot of earthen disasters these last 7, 8 years that Uranus has been in Taurus, and it's going to be moved out around April 26th. Uranus will go into Gemini. But this hit, I mean, this is an eclipse. solar eclipse like squaring exact Uranus. You know, as it's been retrograde, now it's going direct. And so this could trigger earthquakes.
Yeah.
And there could be a triggering earthquake that could occur, you know, sometime between now and tomorrow, or you know, or this week, maybe even a week or two after. And this trigger would possibly start kind of pre-shocks to later aftershocks this year, because it does seem like a year where even though Uranus will leave Taurus in April, we still could have a build up of a lot of earth and type earthquakes and volcanoes and stuff that's already been building over these last years, you know. So that was a good observation. I just wanted to add to that, and that's all I have.
Uh, Another thing I'd like to add to the Aquarian energy and like what you were saying about the chaos and holding true to your identity, yeah, is the timing of the release of the Epstein files, just 2 weeks ago, and what that's doing to the collective, and all this information, it's happening to the collective, and we're becoming aware on it via the internet. This isn't anything that we're actually seeing face to face in our reality, unless you're boots on the ground agent, arresting people or whatever they're doing or not doing. So it's an interesting occurrence that we're moving through with this whole Epstein file bomb that's going off, and how we're processing that. And it's you know in a way, I was reading this post that a lawyer, this high level lawyer, broke down, and she was interpreting that the tactics in the way our government release the Epstein files are very similar to tactics done in courts when dealing with very high profile violent criminal cases. And that she's saying that what they're doing is a form of psychological warfare in exciting, emotional, overwhelming, and doing all these different things. I'm struggling to find the words, but you guys know what I'm talking about. And something I wrote in an article like 5, 6 years ago, before Pluto ever touched Aquarius, was describing how Aquarius, is a sign that governs internet, and Pluto reveals what's being kept hidden, what's operating beneath the surface, and Pluto is, a sign, a planet that also governs the taboo. And we're going through this period now that Pluto's in Aquarius, where the collective is going to go through different moments of intense shock, of slowly becoming more and more aware of exactly what kind of interactions happen in the dark web. And the dark web, it's the hidden internet. It's the internet that's where there are things and transactions going taboo, and it's dark, and it's something it's an expression, it's an expression of humanity that majority of the world doesn't want to acknowledge is real and is happening, such as kidnapping, organ harvesting, all the attacks on children. And so that's why we have that archetype of Pluto, because Pluto, the way I always like to describe Pluto as Hades, Lord of the Underworld. Hades is the only god that has to reside and control and manage the underworld. And the underworld isn't this domain of hell, it's the domain of the collective unconscious. And so while all the other gods get to party up in Mount Olympus and, drink ambrosia and shine bright, Pluto is having to, manage the awareness of who everyone is to their core, and especially the parts of themselves that they are ignoring. And so that's a great responsibility that Pluto has, to manage that, but to also manage the timing on when to release certain parts of that are really unconscious and dark. And the what we're going through right now with this sudden awareness that's all happening through the internet. Yeah, it's gonna be a shock. And the last thing I'll say about this is, something I try to remember to practice when I'm talking about something going on in one sign is to also reference the opposite, So we have this solar eclipse in Aquarius, we have Pluto in Aquarius, and the opposite of Aquarius is Leo. And Leo is an energy that comes from the heart, governs children, and it's that energy of animation. It's when the first four signs come together into an animation. You got the Aries, the spark, you got the Taurus, the body and the foundation, and Gemini, the mind and the expression, and then you have the Cancer, the feeling, the heart. And then you have Leo that ties it all in to animate that into a personification of who you are, right? And this whole talks about moving into the age of Aquarius, and something that I think is really important to understand about the Aquarian energy is Aquarian is collective, right? It's collective, but it's also the outcasts, the weird ones, the ones that are on the fringe. And so, you know, with all this extensive energy in Aquarius, I think it's really important to for people to uh, go through those awkward growing pains of um, putting yourself out into the world to express your truth, to demonstrate your skills. Um, yeah, there was more I was gonna say to that, but I've kind of lost my flow of traction there. If any of you guys,
You hit on something that I'll reflect on. So, when you were talking about how all possible experiences, right, humanity is subconscious, right? That's what the underworld is. You were saying. So what struck me was I just did a video on Human Design Gate 30, where the sun is in for this eclipse. Now, Human Design Gate 30 is an Aquarius gate, but it's a gate that rules our desires. And the most fundamental collective genetic desire we have as humans is to eat, is the hunger for food. But that hunger is not really that different from our hunger for reproduction or sexuality or experience. It's really all the same. It's all one thing. And what's fascinating is that gate 30 will slowly come out of operation, and it will not be active for the human consciousness. So in other words, it's slowly moving outside of the human design graph. Like it's what keeps humanity stuck in this world of kind of horror, where for some reason we need whatever it is you can imagine a human being has actualized. No matter how horrific or how great, there's an impulse in our collective genetics that needs to experience everything. Now, when we think about how disturbing that is, it's obviously being reflected, especially now with the release of such subconscious power compulsive dynamics that is expressed in the Epstein files. And so this is what it is. This is kind of the darkest horror of what it is to have astrology as a language represent all permutations and kind of lights, almost light frequencies of what reality is. And then all of a sudden, behind the Oort cloud, behind the light of humanity, behind the light that structures the density of this realm, we have the outer planets, which are all invisible to the naked eye, which all activate on supraconscious levels of vibration and frequency, which are extremely subtle. Neptune, Uranus, and Pluto. And Pluto, the furthest out, is the darkest. It's behind the Oort cloud where all the asteroids are. Where it is close is actually the further out, the more closest it is us, because it's our shadow. And it's our own compulsive, unconscious predilections. And so with light being given to Pluto in this way that you were speaking of, Mario, it's fascinating how the consciousness that works through us as humans is going to respond to that.
Right.
And that's what you were getting at because you were saying something to the effect of as we wake up, I mean, and, this sounds cliche already, but as we wake up to the awareness that this is how human consciousness expresses itself, what is our response going to be? If it's a
Hmm.
coordinated psyop attack by the way they release information, as you were saying through the lawyer,
Hmm.
then what it is they're ruling our emotional and mental cycles by structuring the trauma so that we go through our traumatic experience, our a culmination of something hugely traumatic, the release of the information, and then all of a sudden a fall while we're all kind of musing, talking, discussing over the information until the next shock wave comes. All
Hmm.
this is orchestrated like an opera.
Yeah. Symphony.
That
Yeah.
that's how it works. And astrology makes that clear because these astrological movements of the planets reflect and mirror our emotional cycles and how we take in and release our own emotions and awarenesses.
Wow. I love that. So beautifully said.
That's great. Yeah.
Yeah, you guys got me going, but
Yeah.
that's cool. But
Wow.
that's one last thing is that's well, I just want to add because we're not going to talk about the Aries Vortex too much, but you're going to go into your next thing, Mario, about the
Hmm.
retrograde coming up in Pisces, which is going to be an extremely active part of it. But this Aries Vortex that's happening this Friday, this is a type of energy where, and this is something we were talking about, we were discussing prior to the video. Mario was talking about how, the Archon Eye and its effect on us is it's like there's no speck of space that's not covered by it, that's not distorted by it.
Yeah.
Distortion is everywhere. And that kind of speckled frame of reality is going to become so apparent on Friday. It's going to be like we're knocked out and we wake up somewhere. Where are we? What is this? I thought I was in everyday reality. I mean, it's going to be that intense.
Right.
We're talking about Neptune incepting at the 0 degree point of the zodiac, a new beginning. And
Right.
what does that look like? We won't even really. I mean, it's Neptune's there, so it's a veil. What we're going to be seeing and what we're going to be feeling, will that even coincide? Will that meet? We'll be coming to terms with that as best we can, and especially a week later, as Mercury moves into Pisces and just like adds all kinds of drugs to that mix, and our perceptions and our drugged up perceptions from there. So I'll leave it at that, man, because you're gonna explode that one up with that Mercury retrograde.
Well, I appreciate what you were saying about all that. And I brought up these two photos. This one right here, this is an image of a city and it's depicting the dark grid, which is street lights, cell phone towers, it's just all kinds of technology that has created this blanket grid over us in our cities. And so so I'm sharing this so you guys can get the can imagine, visualize and understand that you know that there is an invisible there are things happening in a spectrum that we can't see physically, and it doesn't mean that it's not real. And this is an image that can kind of show you that this is real. These are frequencies here, and these are things that we're going to start learning and becoming more aware of as we continue to evolve with the Pluto and Aquarius, Gemini going into Uranus going into Gemini. And so in this grid, the frequencies here are programmed, and there are posts like 5G cell towers and other radio broadcasting signals. There are posts that are and will constantly emit certain frequencies in the background. So so that way there are people in the collective that will be susceptible in receiving some of these frequencies. I'll say, like for example, the first time I really became aware of this in a very real way was about 12 years ago. I was up all night. I had done some I dropped some acid with some friends, and I was getting a bunch of revelations and downloads all the way until the next day. And the next day, I'm walking home, and as I'm walking home, about maybe a few mile walk, um, there came a certain moment in my walk where all of a sudden I felt the thoughts in my mind get completely hijacked, where they went way dark. The thoughts that were moving through my mind went into this way dark space. Whereas moments before and all night, I was in this space of bliss and feeling this profound connection to spirit and this oneness. And all of a sudden, dark thoughts are running through my mind. And I remember I stopped where I'm walking and I'm like, what is this? Because it feels foreign. Because all of a sudden it just entered my body, entered my mind. It feels foreign, and I feel my nervous system being pulled in different ways. And I'm looking around and I realize, oh, I'm walking past a huge cell phone tower. And with my awareness, one of my tactics is always asking questions. I'll ask a question, and one way or another, the answer will come into my mind. So I'm asking these questions: what is this? What's going on? And the information came into my mind that that there's a certain frequency being emitted out here that is trying to enter the minds of whoever is going to allow it. And then when those frequencies are in those people's minds, days go by, weeks go by, months go by, and eventually those repeating thoughts that are foreign, become a part, they get adopted into that individual's nervous system. It changes their attitude, it changes their perspective, and at one point or another, they will begin to act on it. And it blew my fucking mind that I had that. And then this other image, this is something that I drew in a very stressed out moment of my life. Um, I was experiencing a traumatic event, and I was asking the questions, what is this? What's going on? Why am I experiencing this? This is unusual. And I went into a meditation. And in the meditation, I first this image I started to see, and then I started to see distorted waves crash into in together, where I started to see eyes, horns, and this mouth. And basically what I started to see was an archonic entity that exists in the psychic space. And so this is an energy that exists and is able to roam freely, very quickly, multiple spaces at once throughout our cities, okay? And this is an entity. This is something that they summon. This is something that they sacrifice to. This is something that they feed. And this is a vampiric sacral chakra entity that is riding these Luciferian frequency waves that attack the sacral chakra, which distort and pervert sexual expression and sexual energies within the collective. And so I feel like these are going to be very important things that folks like us, way showers or wisdom holders, gatekeepers, or just people who just through their own lived experiences can contextualize these things. I feel like this is going to be part of the next revolution, and being able to um, help people understand, the world's not just going crazy. There is an advanced, dark technological system that has been built, over the past previous decades, and it's now being implemented in full force. And that's what we're seeing here. So I went on a huge rant that I did not mean to go on. But before I begin talking
That's
about the
awesome.
Mercury retrograde, do you guys have anything to say on that?
Go ahead, Casey. Casey, I haven't heard from Casey for a while. You go first.
Um, no, I mean, I just kind of link it back to just the whole everything that like Saturn, Neptune, the whole imagery of our unconscious mind, being projected onto the reality screen. I mean that's kind of like, well, whatever is producing from our unconscious mind is going to be very much so in the image of our experience and our reality. So, and the thing is, what's good about it, I think, is that Saturn, it checks you so that like it's if it's something you don't like, it's gonna be too hard to ignore, you know. So, but I, I yeah, that kind of, I'm just looking at it from an astrological on that.
Um, Thanks. I'll go ahead and add to that. You know, we can't, as humanity, as we exist, as our consciousness moves through us, and we create, and our creations take on an egregore like status, right? Which is kind of what you're showing here, and a creation of some kind of golem, some technological egregore that is being fed, and as it's being fed, it's growing bigger and bigger and bigger. But you know what it is that we as humans, we can't grow without adversity. That's how this place works.
Right. Yep.
So how is, as like spiritual warriors, as people that are aware, we're on some level we're sitting around going, this is boring, we need a new challenge.
Hmm.
Let's see, let's see what we can get into, what fun we can have. And it looks very daunting when we look at it from this perspective, but I love the way you put that together, Mario, because that is really the image of what's occurring. It's not just some computer in front of us and all this Aquarian information being wired through us every day into our minds, messing with us. The real picture of it is that kind of archontic monster is made of like ones and zeros. It is a
Hmm.
digital moving matrix whose outline is very thin. In other words, it's almost both foreground and background, trying to enterprise a reality, trying to launder its information through us. We already have information moving through us. We have other sources. We have nature. We have our groundedness to the natural world.
Hmm.
Trees are the ancient computers. You know what I mean? Like that is the real tech, you know? And many talk about a balance between, play with the new tech, enjoy it, and but still stay grounded in reality, in nature, in nature's way, in nature's rules. But when I hear stuff like this, it's like, whoa, it's a lot. It's, you want to take a breath and say, is the earth land, is the green really disappearing? Is it really dissolving? Are they trying to take over with this like grid like reality, which imposes on us something completely unnatural? And that awakens in us something because, walking through the forest, walking through the mountains, that also has the same effect. The trees are giving us information, the
Right.
animals are giving us information.
Right.
We're
Hmm.
downloading all kinds of source, life source, awareness and light and knowledge and knowingness to dissipate all this tech energy. So we can't forget that the power of nature to raise its own frequency, which is what it's doing,
Right.
is going to be eclipsing these tech realities, and this will be happening. It'll take some time because they're being allowed to have their show, to display, their seeming power, but it'll be taken out. It'll be taken down.
Hmm.
I kind of feel like we might, be spending a lot of time meditating on trying to get into reality instead of meditating into getting into spirituality in a
Right.
sense, you know, like
Right. Yeah.
like we're almost kind of like, usually you go into meditation to kind of contact your spirit in the angelic realm, and so, but like I feel like we're going to meditate more to kind of like now be grounded, with these times and kind of get more adjusted into reality because all that stuff is so it's happening so naturally and all over, you know.
Right, right, right. But a re a full encompassing reality, because we're trying to ground into reality with the understanding that the spiritual is just as real.
Right.
And to center our point and how we move forward, centering our point in reality, while also understanding that we are only able to see and experience a very limited spectrum, visible spectrum, and that there's a whole lot more. So, and it's fractals, right? Fractals within fractals within fractals. So, this mundane reality is one fractal of something else that's happening in a spectrum that I can't see, and they mirror each other. So that's that because I totally agree with you, because that's part of what I'm trying to do too, is like not trying to ascend. I'm not trying to ascend anymore, because I'm a multidimensional being. So in some point in space and time, I've already ascended, who knows, maybe 100 times or so. But I'm here. I chose to incarnate here on Earth. So I need to learn how to descend that multidimensional mastery of myself into this place, because this is where I'm needed. I'm needed. This is where we're all needed, is how can we, through the real world of the mundane, you know, s- do take real action in things that are going to have a ripple effect beyond the visible spectrum, you know? So, anyways, yeah, I agree with you there. And I also really appreciate what you were saying, Meten, about that, the egregors, and because that's what I've been experiencing, is my awareness increasing, of through my experiences. And I've gone through many different cycles where things become very intense and very dark around. And through that intensity, trying to figure out what is actually happening. Because in these intense moments of my past, I would be in a situation with others, and it's like the shit's hitting the fan kind of scenario. And I would always, come to a moment of trying to go inward and ask, what's going on? Why is all this shenaniganery happening? And I'll go into meditation. And when I go into meditation, that's when I can see, we're not acting as sovereigns. We've all been manipulated, through weeks and months beforehand, acting unconsciously through our open back doors and our own unconscious energies to culminate this moment where now there's just all this negative energy interacting between all of us. And guess what? These archonic energies that exist, they're they're eating off, they're enjoying this chaos, because now we're looking at each other and we're fighting each other like, you did this, you did that, fuck you, blah, blah, blah. And so it's been through moments like that where I'm like, what the fuck is going on? And then I'd be put on game. Spirit would be like, yeah, homie, like, this is a real, you're really walking through life where there's actual spiritual battles going. And if you don't learn how to be clean, and pure in alignment with yourself, you're gonna get duped. You're gonna get rocked to sleep, and you're gonna keep being in these cycles here.
Yeah.
Um,
Real quick, I just wanted to throw in there how, like, I mean, I made a little short on it, but like how Saturn in astrotheology is the energy of Satan, right?
mhm.
And Neptune, the glyph, the symbol for Neptune is the trident. And then what do we see? We see Satan or the devil hold the trident, right?
Right.
This is kind of, I wonder if that kind of like what we're saying is has something to do with that depiction of that image of like how, like, is this the last hurrah of like, the devil trying to, do its thing and, basically, take you down with itself or whatnot, or, just the, yeah, just, it's the unplugging of the matrix, I think, in a lot of ways, so.
There's a great film that represents this. It's called The Devil Rides Out. It's a
Mm.
60s or 70s film with Christopher Lee, an English horror film. But it's like the only horror film where the devil is ridden out. It's the only
Wow.
one. Because, the rest of them, who
Yeah.
wins. But this one, Christopher Lee made sure he read this novel and he badgered his producers and his directors. And he was like, this is the movie I want to make. And finally it got to happen. And so it's a brilliant film because even the light siders versus the dark siders is a kind of that setup. But Christopher Lee plays a man who's also aware, who has studied sorcery and occultism, but not himself is, of the devil's kind. And so he protects his friend. And he says, "What are
Mhm.
you doing? What's going on here? Let's get you out of here." And what precedes is a whole battle between both sides. But it's an incredible film because again, it's the only film to memory that I have in a horror film where the devil is written out. I don't remember any other horror film where the light side wins in that way, other than the modern fantasy Lord of the Rings. And there's others, of course, too. We can get into it forever, but I'll leave it at that because that film is very special.
I'm gonna have to watch that. I wrote that down, so thank you. You got a lot of movies. I'd imagine you have a great movie collection at home.
Yeah, for sure.
Uh, and with that, I'm gonna transition into the Mercury retrograde. Let me pull up the chart real quick. No, not that. Hold on, where'd it go? Oh,
It
great.
was there for a second.
Yeah, hold on. My
I'm gonna
software.
run out just for a second, but I'll be right back, guys. Go ahead and
Yeah,
start without me.
yeah, bringing it back. My software. Ah, shit. Okay, I gotta hold on. I gotta pull it up real quick.
Oh, man.
And it's the 26th.
Is it the 26th or the 27th?
26.
26th?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So, in addition, I mean, this whole month of February is full of major astrological events. We have this solar eclipse, which is the Lunar New Year, as Casey was saying. So it's not just a new moon, it's a new moon that restarts the whole lunar year calendar. So the energies going on with this is it's like it's like a stamp that's kind of it's stamping the frequency of what we're going to be moving through the entire year, and that's also with the fire horse. And this month, we're also going to begin a Mercury retrograde. And currently, let me see, Mercury is currently, I think, um, let me see exactly where Mercury is. So right now, Mercury is at 15 degrees Pisces in shadow. And it's actually at this 15-degree point where Mercury is right now, where the Sun Mercury cazimi is going to happen when Mercury's retrograde. So that's going to happen at 15 degrees going into March. Okay, so Mercury retrograde. This is going to begin February 26th. And you see this Mercury is at 22 degrees Pisces. And something that I want to point out is where the sun is during this Mercury retrograde. And you can see the sun is conjunct the North Node in Pisces. And I'm really excited about this Mercury retrograde because this is the first time the personal planets are going to be moving through Pisces without the influence of a heavy hitting planet also in the Piscean domain. And what I mean by that is, just recently we've had Neptune in Pisces. Neptune was in Pisces for 14 years. So for the last 14 years, anytime any planet was transiting through Pisces, the presence of Neptune was influencing and affecting that entire transit. And we've also had Saturn in Pisces. But even before then, we had Chiron in Pisces from 2011 till 2018. And Chiron is this archetype of, the wounded healer. It brings up trauma, it brings up pain, and it brings up things deep within our unconscious that we need to process and learn how to cope and heal. And Pisces being the last sign of the zodiac, so it's a spiritual energy. It's not really a mundane kind of energy, and it's Pisces is associated with karmic endings, completing a cycle. And that Chiron and Pisces transit really triggered and upheavaled the collective to start coming to an understanding of the different spiritual, religious pain and wounds that we have. And one of the ways I've been describing it is woundings to the soul, right? Woundings to the spirit, woundings to the soul. And so that's kind of a complicated thing to understand if you're only identifying with your ego personality in this current incarnation. But if you can understand and hold the awareness that your soul, your spirit itself is energy that has likely existed throughout different eras and multiple lifetimes, and your soul through those different incarnations may have experienced some intense traumatic lifetimes. So I personally believe that in this lifetime, with the amount of planets that have gone through Pisces, including Uranus was in Pisces from 2003 all the way to 2011, is that I see it as one of the indications that the ending of this Piscean age we've been moving through it's actually we're actually ending it. Um, and something that I explained to somebody else before is um, throughout the entire age of Pisces, right? Everybody has an ancestry. Everybody has ancestry where at some point in time over the last 2,600 years, 2,200 years, has lived in a village, has lived in a town, has lived somewhere where they were in an area that where they've had to experience religious and spiritual warfare, right? Like, for example, conquistadors invading Southern America and that whole history of what happened there and the displacement and the assimilating to different religion and culture, uh, the Crusades, so every family has gone through traumatic events throughout different points of time in history where there was deep pain and suffering as a result of war. So we were victims of these things. And so the way I've been interpreting all of these planets moving through Pisces is it's been bringing this up for us to to be that vessel to process and hold space for the pain that we've gone through, these spiritual woundings, these spiritual pains, and see how all of that is a result of so many of the confusion and confusion that we are experiencing in today's world. So, with all that being said, I really believe that this Mercury retrograde is very important. And yeah, Mercury is not really the strongest in Pisces. Totally understand that. Um, but I think that this is really important because with Mercury representing the mind and information and processing information, I feel like this is the first time in about 20, 25 years where our minds, because the other thing about Pisces energy is Pisces is an experience, right? Pisces is about having an experience that's associated to some type of religion or spiritual connection. And so I feel like this Mercury retrograde is to help us experience a new connection and understanding to the spiritual domains, and it's helping us integrate. And with the supporting energies of Neptune and Saturn going into Aries, like we're trying to get over the hump here. And this Mercury retrograde is helping us finalize the process. So I believe that this Mercury retrograde is important to honor what humanity, what you have gone through in your own life, and to reflect, but to also reflect with an intention to um, connect with your higher self, with spirit. And the other thing that I feel it's important about this Mercury retrograde is, Pisces dissolves, right? Pisces dissolves boundaries, dissolves form, and we go into formlessness where we can easily lose our perception of our individuality because now we're in this sea of energy. We're in this sea of psychic energy, and there's no more boundaries that are separating my psychic energy from this psychic energy. So I, even though I feel that this is an important one, a powerful one that's really going to support us in leveling up our ability to mentally perceive spiritual energy, part of this retrograde, we're gonna, you know, I am in support of becoming slightly delusional, slightly lost, right? I think it's good medicine to kind of go off the deep end a little bit with this Pisces retrograde. And the thing about Pisces is, you know, is that it's the fourth mutable sign, right? And there's four mutable signs, and I like to identify the four mutable signs as the four pillar of truth, magic, and perception, where it begins with Gemini, the thought. I have an idea. Okay, I have an idea. I don't know where this idea came from. I had this thought that if we go out to the jungle, we find the right plants and we mix them together. I don't know. I really don't know, but for some reason I had these thoughts. And then Virgo's like, all right, well, let's go to the jungle, pick the herbs and analyze and experiment. And then, so this is the next stage of perception to discover truth. And then Virgo helps alchemize and we create a concoction. Now we have ayahuasca. Then Sagittarius is that first experience of that ayahuasca where now we're seeing the bigger picture and the purpose and the meaning to life. Pisces, however, Pisces is that energy that's like, well, give me 10 doses. I want to go all in and enter an overdose and go into the nightmare. So, because Pisces is also the dream and the fantasy, but it's also that polarity of that nightmare. And this is why Pisces also has the tools of surrender, forgiveness, and unconditional love. Because when you find yourself completely super high on ayahuasca or LSD, it can become overwhelming because those boundaries dissolve and now you're completely exposed to the vastness of all these other frequencies that are very powerful, and it can become very overwhelming, and depending on what's in your subconscious mind, trauma, fear, confusion, deception, it's going to interface with that energy, and then you're in the realms of your own nightmare. But the key to transcend Pisces is to surrender, forgive, and to move into that frequency of love, right? So I feel like this Pisces retrograde may move us through moments like that where we get a little lost, we go a little bit on the deep end, we get confused, we become very overwhelmed in this fear state, that is, coming from these psychological warfare tactics of trauma and Epstein files and people becoming more aware of, the sickness that is just all around the world because then, because right now humanity is being manipulated to go into these moments of hopelessness, right? Well, there's nothing that can be done then, right? Hopelessness. And this, again, this is another part of a Piscean theme, right? Hope, hopelessness, prayer, surrendering, the nightmare, victim. And we're coming to the end of this Piscean age where we're no longer worshiping false idols. We're no longer looking for a savior outside of ourselves. So this is in connection to that final moment of people having to realize through the nightmare, it has to be us. It has to be us that does something. It has to be us that rises together to change the world. And that's the supporting energy of that Neptune and Saturn moving through Aries as well. And this Mercury in Pisces, so if I move forward, sorry, I know I'm going on and on for a minute, but if I move forward just a couple weeks, boom, here we are. So this is the end. So Mercury retrograde ends on March 20th. So if I go forward just one more day, on March 20th. This is the end of Mercury retrograde at 8 degrees conjunct the North Node. So, this is the second time that Mercury is meeting with the North Node in Pisces. And the entire time of this retrograde, that North Node remains at 8 degrees Pisces, which where the beginning of this Mercury retrograde, the Sun was conjunct this North Node. And I love that the day that this Mercury station's direct, the sun it's the day of the spring equinox. The sun has entered 0 degrees Aries. So this Mercury retrograde in Pisces, it's like that movie. What's that fucking movie? That Quentin Tarantino movie with the vampires and they're in Mexico.
Oh
Um,
yeah, yeah, yeah. I know what
it's
you're talking
it's
about.
like that, okay? It's like you have to survive the night. And how are you going to survive the night
Wow.
when all the fucking like and all you need is the light of the sun. That's all you need for to be saved. And can you survive that? And so this Mercury retrograde, that's how I kind of see it is like, the collective, we're in this bar of this movie. Also like the anger management movie, right? And the nightmare is here. The nightmare is revealing itself full force, and so and so when the sun goes into Aries, the spring equinox, the new life, the beginning, the day this Mercury station's direct conjunct the North Node, it's like I don't even know how to describe it, but all I can say is I feel it and I really see it. And I think the Mercury in Pisces is affecting my ability to clearly translate into words at this moment. So I'll stop and let you guys help me out there.
There's nothing more to add, man. That's a brilliant like flashlight put in the darkness of what we're approaching. I mean, what more to add? Like that's
Yeah,
what it is. I mean, I can segue into the total eclipse on March 3rd because that's a part of all this if you want. Because
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
like a
please.
moment in time where I'll do that. Okay, so the March 3rd is so I'll put it like this. So tomorrow we enter into the eclipse shadowlands, right? So it's the period between the eclipses. And I always talk about this with people because I say, you know what, you don't want to plan any surgeries, anything. Well, unless you do. It depends on what, the surgery is, of course. But you want to be careful what you plan in between these times. And it's just like bananas reality after tomorrow or after Friday. It's like reality's up for grabs. Grab your flashlights and see what you see, but even what you see with your lights is not going to be real likely. So, and what's going to occur as Mario put so brilliantly is that right when this eclipse no, sorry, the retrograde ends, we're going to be right back at the Aries Vortex. So it's a whole journey from the Aries Vortex to the Aries Vortex, where
Right.
the life force is shining through it for what it really is. And we'll see where we're all at that time. because these eclipses are little bombs being set off in us, you know. And
Mhm.
the one on March 3rd, so this will be 17 days before, Mercury's direct. We're at the Aries Vortex with Aries Sun, and at that moment, and so at that prior moment, so that eclipse will be a lunar eclipse, full moon lunar eclipse in Virgo at 12 degrees. And again, it's opposing Pisces, where Mario already talked about, detailed fully, North Node in Pisces, the retrogrades in Pisces. All this stuff's been happening in Pisces since 2002. All these planets, everyone cleaning up house, cleaning up the Pisces realm, the soul, and the mention of Chiron, and its effect on Pisces as well. All this is like cleaning up the human soul for a new beginning. So it's the human soul, the human like spirit that's having this new beginning, and are we with that? Are we that? And who is that will reset with that and be that, and because Casey brought this up earlier with this whole divergence rather between that example of the Super Bowl, which just was a mind fuck to me. I was like, what? There's an alternative halftime? What the fuck?
Oh yeah, you didn't
Is
know that?
is no, I know I knew about it, but when I found out about it, I was like, what the fuck's going on? Like, is the superb owl that important that it represents in that moment reality for us that we need to have our own version of it? Right? That the blue and the red, right? The two lights that are trying to take over, the polarities that try endlessly to take over humanity and recruit humanity to fall into a polarity that
Wow.
they need to actually create an alternate. That just blew my mind.
Wow,
It's
yeah.
just a fucking show for a couple hours. It's a movie. It's
Right.
not any. It's all. We all know sports is something that's completely programmed and acted out. We all know this, and
Yeah.
it's all acted out for ideological purposes to promote this. That's gonna have to foreshadow this or that. It's all part of the psyop.
They
So
they hide it. Sports entertainment, they call it now.
yeah, 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 right, right, and we know it's entertaint of
Yeah.
the mind, right? Taint and ment, Latin of the mind. So
Mm,
this eclipse on March 3rd is a total eclipse of the mind. Think about it. It's in
mm,
Virgo.
right,
Mercury's the ruler of Virgo.
right.
So it's not just it's exactly what you said, Mario. There's nothing too much more to add except it feels like someone's gonna slip something in my drink.
Yeah.
You know, it feels like someone's going to be putting hemlock in the drinks,
Uh-huh.
or in the soup, or in our reality soup.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't. This is not something I put in there. I made with my soup. So it's fascinating to see and feel. But I love your comment about being okay with that. Being okay with, oh, something was slipped in. All right, let me ride with it. Let me see where this takes me. Let me see what I see.
Yeah.
And after it's done, after the trip's over, come back to me, come back to myself, come back to my soul, and ask the questions, right? You were talking about that strategy. Okay, what did I just see? What does that mean? How does it affect me? What do I need to do next? All those questions which put us back in our body. Because what's the key of all this? If we're taking a Pisces trip and we come back to the Aries vortex at the end, right? The personality, the mind, the self. We're coming back. Mercury's direct, right? Who are we coming back to? Hey, we just took a trip. Now we're back.
Yeah.
And that's in perfect timing for April, which we have the stellium in April, and it is a powerful, revolutionary, positive, rebellious instinct that's going to be awoken in humanity during that month. And
Hmm.
that's what it's setting and preparing us for.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
up to us right now is just getting through this kind of dark night of the soul, Piscean, Neptunian fucking mindfuck trip.
Yeah.
Let's
Yeah.
let's let's enjoy it and
Seems
see
like
what we
Right.
can feel through the veils of Neptune.
yeah, it seems like such a beautiful and potent storyline that the way the planets are moving and all these shifts. I mean, it really like it just, yeah, I mean, and the way Mario, the way you translated it all was perfect. And yeah, I loved how, you brought up how like all those heavy hitters in Pisces, and how we had to go through that for many years. And now it's being personalized through these, the personal planets. And then also they cross the nodes to evolve them,
Right, right,
and shift, that the momentum towards, progress and future. And it's just amazing because, like, even like, we were talking about like Mercury being a not so great in Pisces. The thing is that with, debilitated planets, is that they actually have amazing great lessons to show humanity. I mean, look at Sun in Aquarius.
yeah,
They have pivotal lessons. Like, it's Mercury in Pisces is very much like, they we don't need logic anymore. It's like it's a because it's our whole train of thought, our whole uh, the plane of our just mental energy is being elevated to the higher planes. You know,
uh,
we don't really need, and then when it goes retrograde, we're actually internalizing that. You know,
uh-huh, uh-huh,
so and then what's great about it is that you have Venus, exalted in Pisces to kind of help with the debilitation. And the debilitation is just the one thing to know is that you just need to find a creative way around it. That's, if you don't have arms, you're going to have to learn how to pick up things with your feet. I mean, that's kind of an extreme analogy, but it's just something where you learn to get better at, and then the senses increase. If you're
mhm,
blind, your hearing increases. So like, all these, like, everything starts to take almost more of a supernatural sense when we learn to get around the thinking debility of this Mercury, where to just the only issue to get around is just grounding that into reality, where we can translate things in a story. But the way the stars are already doing it, they're kind of doing it for us because it's very poetic.
right.
And you translated that very well, you know and Meten, you expanded on that very well, that when as we enter into the Aries energy. So that's, yeah, I really liked how both you guys put that into, all together. Yeah, that.
We didn't have any idea of this before the show. It was just, this
Yeah,
really
it's just you know, we
scary
had no
forward.
ideas. And
Wow.
in response to, about the Mercury and Pisces, no logic, one one of my humorous ways of explaining to people that have Mercury and Pisces is like these are the folks who can, intuitively understand how the world works in ways that make no fucking sense, such as today is Tuesday and I farted, and when I fart on a Tuesday, um,
What?
Carla always brings in bagels at work. And, so it's like, what the fuck? How does that even make any sense? But then, sure, you fart on a Tuesday and you go to work and Carla just so happens to be bringing in bagels. And it's like, it's this
Wow.
weird way of finding your own connection, and because everything's connected, and I love using the analogy fart because Pisces is gas, you know. And
Funny. My mom, she actually has Mercury in Pisces, and sometimes it's really hard to like communicate with her, and what the stuff that she's like translating or hearing is like. What I've noticed is that Mercury Pisces is, they hear things louder. They hear what's not being said louder than what is actually being said.
yeah,
Is
yeah,
one of the things that I've really
You
come
mentioned that.
to
Yeah.
with Mercury and Pisces. So, but yeah, I totally, because like I feel like Pisces, they ask a lot of, like, at least my mom, who's a Sun in Mercury Pisces, and other Pisces I know, they ask a lot of questions. They're like, what does that have to do with anything? Like, why do you need to know that? Like, why that small little detail? But like, they somehow they gather something or absorb something through some, intuitive osmosis and
Well,
some.
remember, Pisces energy can become any sign prior to it. Pisces can
Right.
embody and represent any of the
Through,
signs. It's the final culmination.
yeah.
So
oh,
Piscean energy can be anything. And
Yeah.
that's the power of those that are Pisces. And that's why many always use the words like too much in relationship to maybe a Pisces moon, or a Pisces sun, right? Because you can't stereotype a Pisces person so easily because they can represent any extreme of that Piscean energy. They can represent the polar, the squares. They can represent any kind of elevation, especially in a water sign, in a water moon, in a Pisces moon, especially the moon. But
Wow.
Right.
that's what it is with Piscean energy is that you can't quite contain it. It's 12th house energy. It's Neptunian. You don't know where its reality ends or begins. Like you guys probably watch Tula. Tula, I do collabs with Tula. We're doing a whole series on the planets, and we just did Mercury, and there were several points where she just went off, and I let her. She's a Mercury in Pisces,
Ah,
so she's bringing in logic and ideas and energy and inferences and perceptions that I'm like, all right, let me just take a back seat for a minute, and hear that out because she'll say things and my Aries energy will want to come in and say, but then I'll stop and go, let me let that Pisces sift through that because there's a lot there. She's not just sharing a little. There's much behind that that's been
mhm.
at work and at play, so I need some space to understand that. So yeah, she'll
Mm.
and to communicate, with that Pisces Mercury can be a little hard sometimes because at least on a mundane level, you know what I mean, to get things set up because their energy is like sifting and shifting through and surfing
Right,
through all realities almost on
Water.
one level.
right, right, right.
Mutable water. Yeah.
And
Changeable.
so, a better analogy than the fart is how a lot of ancient or indigenous folks from different parts of the world, they've had their own ways of receiving messages. They're like, oh, I walked on the beach this morning and there were three turtles walking. We're gonna have a storm tonight. How did you get that? It's like,
Right.
it's reading tea leaves, it's like, oh, I can see in your tea leaves that, your so and so is stealing money from you. It's Mercury Pisces, it's that kind of language, it's that kind of through symbols and figuring out how things can connect and then interpreting them in some strange way. And that Mercury retrograde in Pisces, and like I'm Mercury dominant, I mean not Mercury dominant, I'm Mercury ruled, Gemini Sun, Pallas Athena, Gemini, Moon, Gemini. So, you know, I feel very charged up with this Mercury retrograde that's coming up. And I could even feel it. I could even feel like I'm having like an awkward way and feeling like I'm not making any sense, but I know I am making sense.
You'll be
I
Um,
fine.
I've been feeling it lately. Yeah.
I mean, if you feel that way now, man, what about April 26th when Uranus goes into Gemini?
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. I might have to like stop caffeine for good. I swear.
Oh, that'd probably be best, man.
Yeah,
Caffeine is like something, it's too
yeah.
strong for our nervous system.
I'm already feeling, like I'm becoming more sensitive to caffeine, but so I need to start switching into something else.
Yeah.
Otherwise I'd drive my wife nuts.
I do cacao, and that helps a little. Just don't put too much maca or peppers in it, and then it's
Uh,
fine.
okay, okay, okay. Let me think here.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that we want to dive in and talk
Yeah.
about
Well,
real quick?
I was just thinking about kind of like what Meten was saying about how Pisces, and at the last stage, and like that Pisces is the final stage of consciousness on the karmic wheel of life, which is the zodiac, and how like after Scorpio, it's the death stage, right? So
Yes.
Sagittarius is actually the spiritual rebirth, and then Capricorn is then. So there's basically it's four stages of heaven after Scorpio. It's the spiritual rebirth in Sagittarius, and then the karma that we're meeting in the spiritual rebirth at Capricorn, and then we're meeting with the truth at Aquarius, and then at Pisces it's the actual surrender and bliss, where we experience the full, all-encompassing heavenly, energy. So I don't know. I was just thinking about that, as um, we were talking about it. So it's kind of there's the four stages of heaven, or starting with Sagittarius and down to
That's
Pisces.
cool. Yeah.
I like that. Never heard that before.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah. Because you know how Aries is the infant, and then you have
right.
your toddler, and then
And
Gemini.
Scorpio would be death or something, or some kind of death, spiritual death.
Yeah, so it's
Um,
like we're very much in that surrender period where we're really now integrating it through the personal energies, and through Mercury and Venus and Sun and all that, through and also through the North Node. But um, yeah, I mean, I was also kind of looking at a little bit on the Virgo eclipse, the full moon, um, and do you guys feel like there's going to be like a because it's opposite to Mercury retrograde. Do you feel like there is going to be something related to like the workforce or maybe even like health crisis, possibly?
I was looking at that. It is a Virgo eclipse, so it is going to highlight and nuance our experience as a collective, especially health, especially relating to our mind. It's actually conjunct Mercury by 10 degrees at that time. It's it's a south node lunar eclipse, so it's a power outage,
Right,
and
right.
so it is something kind of being, like losing the light, losing the electricity, like lights going out, and so it could be something that impact our health. It's coming right before equinox, so we're still in winter, so it's still before the beginning of spring. So our immune systems are still vulnerable, and Mercury is the ruler of the eclipse as well. And what I noted in my notes is that it is a powerful release of celestial energy. And what occurs with a lot of eclipses, especially the solar, is there are a bunch of souls that leave and souls that come in. So death
mm,
is prominent during such times, during eclipses, not just on a mundane, everyday level, but a geopolitical as well, because these are power outages for our leaders, right? Because the sun represents our leaders in every way, not just political leaders, but the leaders of humanity. And so I've looked at there being another possible kind of health crisis, and this could definitely trigger it, but if it does, it wouldn't happen necessarily at that time. Remember, it's an eclipse. So it could be triggered later when that eclipse is squared by the incoming mutable suns. So that would be during
Gemini.
Gemini period. So that would be June 3rd, and or it could affect the following mutable sign, which after Gemini would be Sagittarius, and that would be December 3rd. So those are the trigger points, the aftershocks periods to watch for.
Mm.
Mm, yeah,
You guys want to add to that?
yeah.
Well, the last time the nodes were on this axis, back in 2015, 2016, it was North Node Virgo, South Node Pisces, but Chiron was also in Pisces, and Jupiter was in Virgo during that time. And I don't know about you guys, but that eclipse, it was a South Node eclipse in Pisces. I got really, really sick. And I noticed that a lot of people in my life got sick where we weren't even really connected, just friends I knew on Facebook. But I got very sick. I don't even want to describe how grossly sick I was, but it was a sickness that lasted for days. So I hope not. I hope it doesn't happen again like that. That would be awful. I would think not because Chiron's not in Pisces like it was last time. But something that I have been thinking about with the whole Pisces Virgo access with the nose is, you know, um, the communities um, that need a lot of service, right? So like nursing homes, veterinary clinics, animals, like I always look at Pisces and Virgos, that those energies as the ones that really find their calling in serving um, you know, communities or campaigns or situations of the most vulnerable. So I've been wondering like if there's going to be something that happens, throughout senior communities, nursing homes, but also like, refugees, things like that. But really pets. I've been really concerned about pets during this time, and so I'd be curious. I'd be curious to see like if there's just a sudden wave of people's pets dying or getting sick, which would be sad and awful. Um, but yeah, that's all I got on that there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that would, because you have Saturn going in your sixth house now, so that
Mhm.
governs pets as well. So that could affect, if you have pets, that could affect something with you. But I have actually, now that you say that, I actually have noticed that. I have, I think, two friends that have had sick pets just recently.
Mm,
It's actually kind of interesting.
mm, mhm.
Hmm.
Yeah, I always looked at Virgo and Pisces as the voices that are not heard, so pets and seniors and things like that. Children with disabilities. Um, yeah.
Yeah, and going back, like it could be, this could be like a miraculous healing of even like of our like,
Oh yeah, I'm in support of that. Hell yeah.
like, because when they talk about like using my astrotheology, when they're referencing how Jesus, he cured a 5,000, or he fed 5,000 people with a loaf of bread and two fish, they're actually referring to the Virgo Pisces axis, because the two fish are Pisces and the loaf of bread,
Oh yeah.
you know and the 5,000 is like, I don't know, maybe it's an analogy for the 5,000 years for the both for Virgo and Pisces ages, because we have history. The longest history we have of humanity was around the age of Virgo, hence the virgin born of a virgin, you know
Mm.
and then we went to Leo, the sun, which the sun personifies Christ and stuff. But I was thinking, because like this is the axis of like where Virgo is the final sign in spirit, and then Pisces is the final sign in matter, and then and the final sign as it is. So it's like, when you learn how to balance health with spirituality, you can perform miracles, and heal the sick, and whatnot.
Wow.
And because Bethlehem, it represents Virgo, which translates to house of bread, you know, and Virgo rules the harvest and the grain and stuff like that. So yeah, so like theological language, is also, I'm feeling a lot of that, as well as we're talking about all of this stuff. So yeah, it's very I mean, my mind's a little blown. I'm almost like, I feel like I'm just on information overload right now.
Yeah, I'm feeling that. I'm feeling that definitely. Wow. Thank you for that connection there. That kind of blew my mind with the the loaf of bread and two fish. That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's I always appreciate when you drop that those kind of knowledge bombs there because it's just like, what?
Yeah.
Loaf of bread and two fishes? Of course it's Pisces and Virgos. It's so obvious. How did you
That's
never
crazy.
know
Yeah. It's crazy.
that?
Yeah. Once you get used to it, it's like the connections, you can just start making your connections so well. It's like, it's like when you play guitar, it's like, oh, well, if this sounds good, oh, well, they're like, that sounds good. Oh, this might sound good too. Oh, this might. So, like, once you start kind of going down that rabbit hole of astrotheology and you learn about some of the connections, and you start noticing so many connections, and they're so just like, oh, wow, that was so cool. It's like, oh, I really struck that chord there. So,
Yeah.
yeah, definitely. I love astrotheology. It's great. It's a great other language on top of the language that is astrology, which, you know, people don't. people don't realize that it doesn't really astrology doesn't require belief because it's a language. You don't say I believe in the English language, right? You know
Right,
it. So
right,
so
right.
many different languages also on top of that. So
I got one last thing just to bring up, and we can close it out with this if you guys are ready to. But I get a lot of bookings from people born in the 60s, and I love it. And I always make sure I spend a couple minutes to explain to them why the 60s was such an important decade and how they were born with the astrology of the 60s that made it, that time that we all understand it to be, in hindsight, revolutionary, one love, hippie movement, and we had wars going on and all these things, right? Um, but in the 60s, we had the Uranus Pluto conjunction in Virgo that was also opposite Chiron and Pisces. And then for 2.5 to 3 years of that time, Saturn was also in Pisces. And that whole Chiron and Pisces throughout the 60s, opposite that Pluto Uranus Virgo conjunction, it's like I always have to, commemorate my clients born in the 60s because it's like that collective they're just extremely important to the in holding the space to the next, to allow the generations afterwards to grow into the next thing. And one of the examples that I have is like Dr. Joe Dispenza. I think if I remember, he was born 62 or 63, and he has these big placements with the Pluto Uranus conjunction in Virgo opposite the Chiron. And you guys are familiar with Dr. Joe Dispenza, right?
yeah, a little
So,
bit.
so you know his story, right? He got into this accident. His back was obliterated, and so he was in this extreme position of choice points, right? Of like, what is he going to make out of this experience? Like, is he going to accept his suffering and live this life of just victimhood and just these unforeseeable circumstances? Or what can he do? And then there's that Pluto Uranus Virgo energy of like diving deeper into the human potential and the mind, transforming our entire reality. Anyways, like with how we've had, Uranus, Chiron, Neptune, and Saturn all go through Pisces, like these people born in the 60s, they've really have gone through a lot. And the other thing too is that these are the folks that are old enough to be our parents. You know what I mean? So do you guys have anything to say about this generation?
Uh,
Putting us on
well,
the spot here.
Yeah, I know, kind of.
well, I was gonna say,
We can put a
I
pin
will
on it.
say
We can
that a lot.
we can
Oh,
put a
sorry.
pin
Go.
on
You go ahead first, Casey.
no, well, I was gonna say was like because the '60s is really when we got into like the hippie move, like we started like kind of the hippie movement in the age of Aquarius, right? Or am I
it.
off track? Right, it was the '60s, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, because we actually had that pile up of Aquarius placements. I think it was 1962. It was like, if I remember correctly, we had like all the personal planets and Jupiter, if I heard it correctly. Probably really helped to initiate that.
Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah, here we are in 62.
Yeah, it,
Yeah, so if I go really slow, if I go really slow throughout the moving throughout the eras. Here, let me move slower. You see this Chiron in Pisces, and that Pluto in Virgo, and then Uranus catches up throughout the 60s. Yeah, anyways, that's probably a little too confusing for the eyes to catch. Um, well, think about that. If you guys have, if anything comes to mind to speak on that stuff, bring it up on the next time we come together. And if you guys are ready to come to a close, I'm ready. I'm ready for that. Um, So you guys all know me from my channel, Mario Unscripted Liberation Codes. Don't forget, I still do have a sale going on for the Chinese New Year. So if you go on my website, sleepingshaman.com, and you use coupon code FIREHORSE, all one word, you get a discount on a reading. So go ahead and take advantage of that so I can break down to you what is going on in your chart. And Casey and Meten, you guys want to let everybody know where they can find you and how to book sessions with you and where does us to subscribe to your channels and stuff.
You first, Casey. Go ahead.
All right, yeah. So I'm mainly active on Instagram Threads under my channel is the Astrologini. I also have Instagram and I have YouTube under the Astrologini as well. Um, Basically, you can just email me at theastrologini.com for readings. I also have a link on my Instagram Threads for readings, and yeah, I can do special kinds of readings like astrotheology, which is about, holistic healing timing methods, uh, and kind of, more that's more like health focused and stuff like that as well. So,
All right, thanks. Mario, your sound is off, Mario.
Oh, I was
Uh,
just saying which what Casey has to offer in terms of health and astrotheology is extremely valuable and enlightening information. So anybody curious about that, highly recommend hitting him up.
yeah, already doing some of his practices, and it's powerful.
uh,
Um,
doing right now, yeah.
for me, I'm on plutonicplanes.com. If you guys want a reading, I'm doing human design readings and astrocartography readings right now. And you can find me on YouTube at Plutonic Planes as well. And yeah, that's about it, I think. I'm not having any kind of special sale or anything. So yeah, that's about it. Thanks.
Awesome. All right, you guys. This was a lot of fun. Appreciate it. Everybody, please go subscribe to Casey and Meten. They're very knowledgeable people. One of the things I really appreciate about us coming together is the three of us really have a deep respect and appreciation for the craft of astrology. So, this is it's you're getting a lot of good content from us at any point in time. So definitely stay tuned to our channels and if you got any ideas or suggestions of what you'd like to hear from us coming together, just go ahead and drop it in the comments. With that being said, as I always like to say, we are full spectrum, love and light, death and darkness.
That's badass.
Like that.
So
Peace.